The effects of World War I were catastrophic. It was not the dreamt of glory war, but a carnage that destroyed millions. The old empires crumbled, the Ottoman and Habsburg were dismembered, Russia succumbed to revolution and the independence of successor states. Germany, so newly unified, lost territory, natural resources, and 1.5 million Germans were now to live in territory incorporated into an enlarged Poland. When the victorious Allies met at Versailles, Germany had to pay crippling reparations, the War Guilt Clause. It was against this background that the Weimar Republic, Germany's first democratic government, was established. The government faced huge social, economic, and political problems. The punitive terms of the treaty made recovery almost impossible. The catastrophic situation was exacerbated by the outbreak of a pandemic, Spanish flu, which swept the world at the end of the First World War. By 1922, there were 6 million unemployed and a worthless currency. In the autumn of 1923, a loaf of bread cost 200 million marks. Desperation led to the polarization of politics. Between 1919 and 1923, there were 376 political assassinations. It included that of Walter Rathenau, a German Jewish industrialist and the foreign minister, who was murdered by right-wing fanatics as an elder of Zion. What was necessary was a scapegoat. In 1919, in Munich, Bavaria, the German Workers' Party, which later changed its name to the NSDAP, or Nazi Party, was formed. It was one of the many fanatical parties committed to the destruction of the Weimar Republic and in violent opposition to the Socialist and Communist parties. By 1920, their leader was an Austrian corporal who had served in the German trenches. His name was Adolf Hitler. Hitler was born in Branau on April the 20th, 1889, a village in Catholic Austria. On the death of his beloved mother, when he was 16 years old, he moved to Vienna with pretensions to an artistic career. Fin de siècle Vienna was both deeply conservative but also subject to breathtaking and unsettling forces for change. 10% of the population was Jewish. The city of Freud, Mahler, Strauss, Klimt, Adler and Herzl seethed with polar opposite ideas. In this city of polar opposites, in the capital of an empire made up of many national groups, Jew hatred provided a common denominator for these disparate groups. Karl Lueger, the populist mayor, was elected for 10 consecutive years, 1896 to 1906, on the platform of the repeal of Jewish emancipation. Hitler was an embittered failure who embraced fanatical anti-Semitism, the ideology of pan-Germanism, and the notion of the Aryan master race. He loathed modernity, which shattered the old order, and allowed a permissiveness which he found repellent. All this he equated with Jewishness. In World War I, Hitler served not in the Austrian army, but in the German. After the defeat, like so many others, he returned to Munich, which had been in the grip of a communist revolution. Ironically, the entire leadership were born Jewish. It failed to be replaced by a right-wing state government. In a letter of 1919, Hitler already defined Jewry as a racial group and advocated their total removal from German life. The reality was that the Jews of Germany made up only 1% of the population. Over 100,000 had fought in the German army, and 12,000 died in battle. 35,000 had been awarded the Iron Cross. Ironically, Hitler had himself been awarded it at the behest of his Jewish officer, Hugo Gutmann. Hitler was employed by the Munich state to investigate small splinter parties. Hitler joined the NSDAP. A spellbinding orator, he quickly became its leader and found adherents in the beer kellers of Munich. The culture that was developing in Weimar, in film, in music, literature, theatre and cabaret was modern, subversive and extreme. To the Nazis, it was decadent and Jewish. The Nazi Manifesto of 1920, written when there were only 60 members, had a 25-point plan. It insisted that no Jew could be a German national, opposed parliamentary democracy, and wanted the tearing up of the Treaty of Versailles, the creation of a large national army and a greater Germany. War was declared against the destructive Jewish influences, code for Jewish decadence. Hitler gave an even more racial expression to his views in Mein Kampf, My Struggle, written when he was briefly incarcerated in Landsberg prison for treason for attempting to overthrow the Munich government. The fact that he had a short sentence and freedom of the castle illustrates how much support he already had from conservative elements in the judiciary and the government itself. In Mein Kampf, he emphasized social Darwinism, the idea of the conflict of the races and the survival of the fittest, the Germans as the master race and the battle of the nations, Volk for self-preservation and the need to acquire more living space, particularly in the East. He also called for a death struggle against Bolshevism, which he named Jewish. The end of weakening liberal democracy and the notion of the Führer principle, the leader is always right and has absolute authority. Behind every one of his enemies, he saw lurking the figure of international Jewry, the devil incarnate, working towards world domination. Hitler had imbibed the long tradition of race literature, which reached its height in the notorious Tsarist forgery, The Protocols of the Elders of Zion, which blames all the problems of the world on the Jews, who purportedly conspire together to work for world domination. It is a work so beloved of conspiracy theorists right up to the present day. Hitler had gained enough support in right-wing Munich to attempt a coup. It was unsuccessful, and he was put on trial for treason. The right-wing judiciary sentenced him to only 5 years in prison. In fact, he only served 9 months and was given freedom of Landsberg Castle, where he wrote Mein Kampf.
To stay up to date with JTV content, click subscribe here if you're on YouTube and hit the alarm bell. And if you're on Facebook, hit the like button, and under following, click see first. If you enjoy watching JTV content and want to help us continue to grow, please consider making a donation to us by clicking here.